Hello. First hail, something or other. Oh, welcome. Good, we already have one of you. First of all, let me say salute. I'm gonna drink a bit of the virus. And something or other, since you're here first, you get to ask whatever you want. I'm thinking of just doing a bit of an interactive stream today about, the ongoing apocalypse, which that's pretty cool as far as apocalypses go, I think. No radioactive death yet, but not for lack of trying from the Americans. Nazarovia. Hello, Amy. Indeed, have another one. So yeah, of course, my opinion on the whole Ukraine-Russia thing is Putin is just doing what he's warned everybody for about a year that he's gonna do if they don't pay attention. And the neocons, of course, want to keep pushing the war. So interestingly, they want to push the war with, as usual, Europe as the whipping boy. And of course, Mario Draghi, who is probably maybe even worse than Macron in terms of European leaders. Italy has now got a state of emergency, which was supposed to end on the 31st of March. It's now been extended to the 31st of December because of the war. Interestingly enough, none of the countries that border the Ukraine have a state of emergency because of it. But we, 3,000 kilometers away, are in a state of emergency because I can't take this shit seriously, honest. It's just funny. Hello, Annie. So, yeah, just like I said, wanted to be a bit more interactive. We had some really great people over for lunch a couple of days ago, and a really awesome family. A bit older than us, but they also had like 3 kids, and one of their daughters was with really knowledgeable people. They the guy's daughter just made me figure out something about my farm that I didn't know. Apparently, I already have a rainwater catchment well. I knew there was a well there, but it seemed dry and the pump wasn't working. But it's because it's a rainwater catchment well, which I just have to clean out, and well, there it is. Yes, Macron's wife is 20 years older than him. Yes, the mummy complex. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Draghi is he's the quintessential vermin banker, fucking, worm tongue par excellence. Yeah, and he says it's taken from the same World War II playbook with Germany. Pretty close. And the scary thing is that you'd think, we're so much more sophisticated. And I'm looking at people that are pretty intelligent, that were like all like, yeah, COVID is this bullshit or whatever, and, they had their opinions or whatever. But now it's like, oh yeah, Ukrainians are the Ukrainian victims. I'm like, look, if Russia wanted to take over Ukraine, it would have been done day 2. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, and of course, Russia Today news has been banned from all of Europe. So for a brief period of time, Russia Today, after they got banned on Telegram, they quickly changed their name to like RT News, but like spelled backwards. And consider like RT News had like 300,000 followers, and then after that they had like 30,000, and then they got banned there as well. So I think the only place I can easily see RT News now is on Gab. So that's where I'm at. Hello, Jan. And yeah, I just thought, like I said, I'd be doing a bit of an interactive random one. So let me know if you got questions about the apocalypse, the war, women, guns, beer, whatever. Willie Ram says, we have audiovisual contact with the Venetian. Yes, despite the war that has put Italy in a state of emergency, apparently 3,000 miles away, 3,000 kilometers away. What the Russians are doing 3,000 kilometers away has caused Italy to go into a state of emergency. Not Poland or Hungary or any of the other countries that are right up next to it, but hey. Who is more detestable, USA or China? This is going to be controversial, but I would say USA, because they infect the whole planet. China, odious as it is, and they are quite odious in many of their behaviors, personally, I find them quite offensive. They kind of stick to their own, they stay in their lane. But you Americans, you've been infecting the whole planet with the whole Freemasonic nonsense that that exudes from there. I mean, the problem is most Americans don't know this. They don't know their own history. But America was the first Freemasonic country. It was founded by Freemasons. It was financed by Freemasons who used basically bankrupted France to have the revolution that gave so-called independence. They bankrupted France, and then Louis and Antoinette got blamed for it and lost their head over it, literally. So it's it was designed to be a Freemasonic country. It is a Freemasonic country, and I think you can see that. I mean, it's the biggest banana republic on the planet at the moment. I mean, it makes Zimbabwe look like a upright member of African nations. China has got more hardcore. Well, it's arguable, but supposedly China's got a lot more stringent, hardcore rules, social rules, or whatever. While I guess in America you could just shit in the street in San Francisco now, and then that's acceptable. They can't even arrest you for it. It's just like your human right, to crap on the pavement. While that in China possibly might get you shot in the back of the head, depending on where you do it. But on the other hand, you probably end up bankrupt, in jail, and homeless if you say that men are men and women are women, and men can't become women and women can't become men. You say stuff like that, you're probably out on your ass. For all I know, they'll give me a strike just for saying that on here. I gotta say, I'm doing well with the coronavirus. I've just decided I'm immune now, so. Wooly Ram says it's hilarious how the powers that be centralized all hardware production in the East. The material substrate of their observe and command logistics are under the thumb of C. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I was saying to these friends, it's like basically Russia, being a bit bigger, having a bit more money, and having, sort of had a global outlook on this for a lot longer than I have, is basically doing what I'm trying to do. And they're way ahead. Russia is energy independent. They've divorced themselves from the whole SWIFT system. Oh, that reminds me. If any of you is a day trader, or that knows how to buy shares online and stuff easily without paying huge brokerage fees, do get in touch. Drop me an email, because I believe that I have. I've never played online with that stuff, but I'm willing to throw a couple $100 at a shares of a particular company that I think is, at the moment, they're like 1 penny, but I think they're gonna go up to a few bucks. So I'm just gonna try it. I'm just gonna throw a couple $100 at it or whatever and see what happens. But I don't know how to do that stuff. So one of you that does, let me know. And anyway, Russia is like energy independent. They're food production independent. They've got some of the most advanced military technology on the planet. I think currently Russia is probably the most advanced military, effective military power on the planet. America might have similar things, but they're completely not effective. I mean, they've got women running their ships and battleships crashing into each other, crashing into cargo ships because the women on the boat are arguing with each other or on the period or some weird shit. So yeah, A&E, like I said, if you're interested, drop me an email. Yeah, we can do a coordinated thing. I've got no issue with that, but I'm not going to tell you what it is out here because I still have to set up and everything. But once I am set up, I'll let you guys know if you're interested. So yeah, they're completely energy independent. They're able to militarily, power-wise, protect their interests, and that's why America is pushing hard for Poland and Lithuania, Belarus, and to Romania to go to war with Ukraine. Apparently, Poland is gonna get supplied aircraft to fight the Russians, and America will pay for them. But Putin, Russia has basically said, yeah, anyone that allows their country to be used as a base to like fly planes out to fight Russia, we'll consider that an act of war and we'll act accordingly, which means we will fucking bomb the shit out of whoever tries to fuck with us. We've made it very clear that our aim is very simple. We just want Ukraine to be a neutral country, not be a member of any bloc, EU or NATO or any of that. It's going to be like a buffer zone. I mean, if you look on a map of where Ukraine is, where Belarus is, and the fact that Lithuania, Estonia, all these, Finland, these things are all bordering Russia. And like, if you look at a map of what NATO used to be like and what it is now, it's crazy. I mean, like the Americans, kind of like with the Red Indians, they broke every treaty they agreed to, and it's like, what the hell, And the Russians have been saying, look, just stop that shit, stop that shit, stop that shit. Look, if you carry on with that shit, I'm gonna bitch slap you. Just stop that shit, I'm gonna bitch slap. Last warning, I'm gonna bitch slap you. Now they're getting bitch slapped. So, are the Polish smart enough to revive what material, what WAT material and sell it instead of use it? Oh, war material and sell it. We're talking about the Polish. You know how I feel about them and their IQ. So, no. But it's a free-for-all tonight, boys and girls. So, any questions you got, any comments, you want to start up, go off at a tangent, go for it. It's, I'm feeling wild. What with war and the apocalypse and the plague all happening at once, you can see I'm terribly worried. By the way, the little still image I had for this video, which is like some redhead chick like shooting a M60, I think, is I think it's a German machine gun, actually, whatever, a 50 caliber. Anyway. That's just because it reminded me of my daughter a little bit, in that I think it's important to teach your children firearm safety, and I think she's got the right ear protection for it, and yeah. So I went. What is your favorite 7.62 semi-auto rifle? I want an FL. FL is a nice one, but semi-auto. You see, I like rifles that can hit out to a long distance. I'm into that. So FAL is good, but I don't know how accurate they are. I've never fired one. There is a I can't remember if it's a PSG. I think it's a German one. Might be a Heckler and Koch. I can't remember. 7.62 semi-auto, considered to be a sniper rifle. Again, I've never fired one. It's just something I've read up on, and I think it's if I had to go for like a semi-auto rifle, I'd try and pick one that is classified as a sniper rifle, because 7.62 is a good. I like that. I would never, if I had to go in a war, I would not want to use a 5.56. I want to use a 7.62 no matter what, even if it is submachine gun rounds or whatever. The R1, which is a South African weapon. There's R1, R4. They made different versions, but the R1 is the long one. That's a 7.62, and that's a semi-auto. And I think for its time period, it was very good. I'd probably go for an R1 or an FAL. I think the R1 was probably lighter, easier to carry around. I'm not sure, but yeah, something like that. I hope that answers your question. It's kind of meandering there a little bit, but thanks for that. Something or other. I enjoyed that question. Matthias says, my son recently told me he'll be turning into a woman. Started taking hormones, and I think he's quite immature to make that kind of decision. Do you have any advice, as I'm so lost? He'll be 18 years old in a few months. Matthias, first of all, are you the father or the mother? That makes a bit of a difference. Secondly, there is a very good article I read by a lady, a woman, that had her daughter, I think, was trying to become a boy, and the mother just hardcore switched off all her social media, and I think she was still at an age where she could do that. Like, if it's going to be 18, that might be difficult, but you might have time. Completely cut him off from all social media, forbid her to like hang out with the friends that were like, trying to brainwash her, and absolutely refused to acknowledge her nonsensical behavior. And it was like, you are my daughter, you're a girl, your name is Jane, or whatever it was. And it took some time, and at times, apparently this lady was like hated by her daughter, but in the long run, she recovered her, and she's like, I'm never gonna. It was all to do with social media getting into their brain, really, that, and she figured out that all the stuff was mostly online, and it was like people from school and whatever that were like pushing her into this thing. So it's a very good article. I can't remember the name of it, but it's something like, I don't know, saving my daughter from transgenderism or something like that. I don't know, just try and Google it. Willie Ram says, how do you think this would have played out if this war was sparked by the witch queen Clinton back in 2016, assuming no Trump? Oh, I think it would have been full-blown hot war, possibly with American planes or, flying out there as well. So I think Trump gave enough of a buffer zone that now most people are like, yeah, we know you're all talking shit whenever you switch on the TV. So Matthias says, I'm his father, but his mother, after we divorced, said she was a man and started dressing and acting as a man. Okay. Pardon me. You got a serious problem on your hands. Now, have you got custody of the child, or does the mother? Because that's bad news. If he identifies with his mom and she's doing all that weird shit, I probably can't give you the advice I'd give you if we were sharing a beer together. Not online, anyway. So, and also, where are you from? Are you American? Because that also makes a difference. I assume you're not in Russia, because otherwise that wouldn't be a problem. But okay, there's 11 of you, just like the apostles, because one was a traitor. And Matthias, I can't advise you on how to fix your son on a live stream on the internet. it's, you gotta sort of, you're from Argentina, but do you live in Argentina? That's a very important, that's a bonus point if you're still living in Argentina, I think. And if your son is there too. Let me put it this way. Say that happened to me. What would I do? And I was in Argentina, which, I've been to Brazil. I've not been to Argentina. I've been to Brazil. I've been to the States. I've been to Africa. I've been to some places in, Asia. Argentina is a pretty big country. You've got a lot of open air, sort of, camping area. Okay, so you live in Argentina. This is what I would do. I'm not telling you that this is the right thing. I'm not a doctor. This is the internet, so take it all with a pinch of salt. But if my son at, 17 and 6 months or 8 months or whatever said, Dad, I'm going to be a girl, I'd be like, all right, son, girl, whatever. Tell you what, I'll give you a lift to the corner shop, and then all of a sudden would be in the Pampas, in the middle of fucking nowhere, with a tent, a knife, a couple of matches, maybe a pellet gun, or a rifle, or whatever, a shotgun. And then we'd stay there for 1, 2, 3, 4 fucking months, as long as it takes. That you have to figure out, you gotta build a fire if you want to eat. You gotta shoot a bird or kill something if you want to eat. You gotta dig up some roots if you want to eat. You better catch the water if you want to drink. I'd go on a very long camping trip. And if need be, with a pole, a bit of chain, and a big water drum. And I'd stay out there as long as needed. Now, possibly some people would come looking for me. Possibly people would say that that's, cruel and unusual behavior or whatever. But I don't know. It's just, I struggle to see how any of my kids could. And look, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying I find it very difficult to think that any one of my kids would come up with something like that. Just because of how I am and how I treat them and how they are, and there's no lies, there's no hidden thing, and so I would just like I said, I would go on a long camping trip, take some time off work, and go, guys, I'm gonna go on a long road trip with my son, and if it ends up being 6 months in the bush somewhere, well, so be it. So that's what I would do, especially if he started taking hormones. I would fucking knock that shit on the head right away. And if he's under 18, I don't know what the rules are, I don't know what the laws are in Argentina, but I don't know. Over here, I don't think a child can't choose to have hormone treatments on their own. So if you are physically accessible, if you've got access to your son, I don't know what the rules are there, but yeah, I would fix that. I think that's about all I can say, man. I mean, I don't know. I feel for you, but like I said, I'm a guy on the other side of the planet, and I don't know the whole ins and outs. I mean, that sort of thing doesn't just develop from one day to the next, I don't think. So that was a bit of a curveball, but I hope I gave you some hint of a useful advice. I don't know. I would be interested to know how it turns out. So the laws here almost want children to change their sex. Okay. But you do have very large areas of open camping trips areas, right? And if not, I think you've got Paraguay, Uruguay next door. Maybe you could tell your son that, convince him to go on a holiday in Uruguay. Maybe it's not quite the holiday that he'd envision. Or Brazil. I mean, you're not far from Brazil. And Brazil is really big. There's plenty of areas in Brazil where you can just Stay out in the jungle for fucking months and people won't even know that you're there, really. Yeah, exactly. Woolly Ram says enough time on hormones will sterilize the kid even if he regrets it later. So yeah, I would act sooner rather than later. Celine, hello. Uh, that's honestly that's what I'd do. I'd fucking go to Uruguay if Argentina is not cool for that, or Bolivia, or Peru, or Chile, or something. Take a holiday. Take a holiday and go on a long, long ass camping trip where the biology and the physicality of things are unavoidable. You know, if you have to dig a hole to take a shit in the bush, you gotta dig a hole to take a shit. And there's no hormone blockers, you know, out in the middle of the jungle. So, oh, you're hungry? Well, you better work for your food. You're hungry? You better cook. You better make a fire. That means you gotta get wood. I don't know what the possibilities for camping and that sort of thing are in Argentina. I'm assuming they exist because it's a pretty big country, but if it's not ideal, I'd rather pack up whatever I need without necessarily explaining what we're going to do, and take a holiday, you know, study some maps, check out Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, Brazil. I'd say Paraguay and Uruguay are probably better because I think they're lower tech, should we say, less paperwork. Paraguay, something like that. Um, and that's it. I would just fuck off into the bush for like 6 months if need be. And you know, it's gonna be pretty tough to like avoid and no media, no social media, no you know, internet, no Facebook, none of that shit. Chop wood, carry water. You want to eat, you gotta chop wood because you gotta make a fire because you gotta cook it. Carry water because you want to drink, you better go get it from the river. And then you gotta filter it or boil it because you know there's bugs in there. I would do that. Honestly, that's what I do. And if I have to stay in the fucking bush for a year, then I'd stay in the bush for a year. But that's me. I'm not saying that's the right thing. I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm just telling you what I would do. And yeah, well, that's a bit depressing. Okay, what was I saying? Oh yeah, war, guns, and women. Those are the questions I want you guys to throw at me. While you think up of a few questions, I'm gonna get more koof. I'm gonna get more medicine for the plague. I'm gonna get more plague. I'll only be a minute, so throw up your questions. I'm back. All right, another Corona and some cheese. Thought I'd have a beer and cheese with you guys. Thanks for the hints. I couldn't go for long holidays as he's in school right now, but I get the idea. Dude, fucking school? Really? Yeah, I won't give a fuck about school, matey. I'd be in the fucking pampas, that's where I'd be. I mean, again, I was, once we left, and this, you know, nobody was sick, there's no weird shit. And okay, fine, it was in Africa, but my parents and I, and my brother, we went to, you know, just on a hunting trip for like 2 or 3 weeks. We just didn't give a shit about school. And then when we came back, the school was like, oh, you took your kids out for 3 weeks? And we're like, yeah, we're camping. Fuck you. You know, what are they going to do? You know? Wooly Ram says, have you found any reliable sources for how the disarmament and naturalization of Ukraine is proceeding? Oh, well, I had the real Koof, and this is my second beer, so that's what variant I'm on. I guess that's 3.0. Yeah, I think the denazification or whatever the Russians are calling it of Ukraine is pretty complete. They haven't completely taken over Kiev yet, and I'm not sure why. Because one of the things I said right at the beginning is like, I'd be really curious to see what happened to Zelensky. Does he survive this? I suspect yes, and the reason I suspect he will survive is because it is more of a humiliating defeat for the neocons if he just gets made to be a ridiculous, useless, total clown puppet to the whole world than if you just kill him. If you kill him, all the neocons are going to be like, oh, he's a martyr, they killed our hero, our, you know, Jewish guy singing with high heels and banging his dick on a piano. I'm not making this up. That's what Zelensky was. He's a Jewish comedian that danced with high heels and banged his dick on a piano. No joke, that's what he did. That's who he is, the hero of Ukraine. So, I mean, I think the Americans need to apologize to Baghdad Bob, because Baghdad Bob, compared to, you know, the stuff that's coming out now that Ukraine has killed 11,000 Russians, is making Baghdad Bob look like pristine information. That's just... What alcohol content is that virus? Oh, it's not that bad. It's 4.5 alcohol. There you go. Maybe you can read it there. That's it. La cerveza más fina. We have watered down beer in America. I know, but I like it. I'm not a big drinker. I actually like Bud Light. And I remember when I was in South Africa, this friend of mine and his cousin, we were working on computers, putting them together or something. And I don't know how it came up. It was like, oh, I like Castle, I like Heineken, whatever. And I was like, nah, I like the Buds. You know, I like the Bud Light. And the guy's cousin was this big, you know, drank a beer, you know. We obviously are tougher men. He's just like, fuck you. Just... Are you homesteading now? Sorry, I'm out of the loop. Yeah, I don't call it homesteading. I don't know where that fucking name comes from, but I hate it. I'm on some land that's got some olive trees. It's got some couple of lines of grapes. Not really enough to make a bunch of wine or anything, but maybe to make a couple of bottles for myself. And we've got, you know, we've got some things, some fruit trees and stuff, and so yeah, I suppose it's a little farm. You know, there's enough here that if I could farm this whole thing properly, definitely feed my whole family easily, but not so easy because I've been left to basically go to shit for about 3 or 4 years. And the guy who sold it to me had also left trash all over the place. So it's been a lot of hard work just to get the house to be like livable, and so we're getting there now. But it's getting to the point where I need to do something about like solar and heating and whatever. I bought this like wood stove kitchen, which I still need the guy to come and install, but everybody's fucking busy. It's like takes months to get a guy to come and do something here. That's not something I want to install myself. Hello, aged in the sun. Long time no see. Mhm. The boy might be up. I might have to pop out in a minute, but we'll see. So yeah, okay. Well, guns, women, really? You guys also silent? Just listening to my random cheese and beer wisdom? Alright, I'll start then. So I went to try out a couple of guns, and I've had this, I quite like Ruger. I had a Heckler and Koch in South Africa, and never again. I know some people swear by Heckler and Kochs, but I think they're crap. I had a 40 S&W in Heckler and Koch, a USB, I forget which, there's like a USB 7, 6, 5, whatever, I forget which number it was. But something wasn't right with it. The primer, the striker sometimes didn't set off the primers. So, you had to like clear the gun once in a while. I just couldn't trust it. But I like Rugers. I had Ruger revolvers. My dad's had some. Also some semi-autos in Rugers. And I've never had a problem with Rugers. So I checked out this Ruger precision rifle. And man, that thing is out of the box. It's like, it really is a precision rifle. It's very good. I was very, very impressed with it. So if any one of you are in the States and you can buy that sort of thing, I'd suggest a Ruger precision rifle it's a good rifle. I really liked it. It's Lent. We're trying to be good Catholics. All right. Yeah, I've pretty much failed my Lent already because I thought I'm going to try and swear less. I don't think I made it a day without effing and blinding at something or someone. Or it was just like, oh well. But yeah. But it's been an interesting, cool couple of days. Very busy. It's just so much stuff going on. Some of which I can't and don't really want to talk about. But good things overall. Just busy and a bit manic. But today, I'm still doing. There's so much stuff to do that we cleared out one of the little areas outside the kitchen so that we can stack wood there so it can just dry out in preparation for the hooking up of the wood stove in the kitchen. And so I built a little pallet so it stays off the ground and stuff. But everything in this house, because these old houses are like, this house, the original structure is from the 1700s, so the walls are, there's not one room in this house that's squared off. They're like a couple of inches from one wall to the other, and not just in one direction. It's not just the horizontal that, like a little bit trapezoid, but the vertical. So they're all like sort of a little bit misshapen rooms, which means that furniture and stuff doesn't always fit, and there's usually, you're just out by like a centimeter. Everything is just enough wrong to be like a pain. So for that reason, also it takes ages. But yeah, like I said, we had these cool people come over and took them for a little walk around the property, and they were like quite impressed. They gave me some decent advice, and they were like, "Nah, you've picked a good spot. You got a good spot here. That's good." And I'm probably gonna go visit them later in the month, because one of the things I've been researching is this individual sovereign citizenship or whatever, which is international. I mean, once you do that, you can pretty much say you're like an independent little country. But you know, there's the theory and then there's the practice, and there's a lot of questions like, oh, well, how does that work for taxes? How does that work for your property? If you put your property in a trust, then you know, and there's just, so I've been looking into that as well. And that's just difficult questions, because one of the things that irritates the fuck out of me with see, there's the length thing with respect to the sovereign citizenship is that they all start out with, well, the important thing is you need to have the good vibration of love and, you know, brotherhood, and I'm like, look, forget that shit. Tell me the paperwork that needs to be done so that you've registered with the government as officially a sovereign citizenship. What the fuck do you need to do? Which form do you need to do? How do you need to do it? Do you need to create your own form? How does it work? Those are the things I want to know. The love and kumbaya shit, let me worry about that. That I can do. It's not a problem. And you know, they're all this long-winded fucking things. It's just, pain in the ass. Do you think Russia may be fighting in Antarctica now? No, I don't. Something or other says, this is extremely degenerate, but I have to tell you guys something. Given the title, I banged 218's Miss Costa Rica in 2018. Okay. Good for you. Did you marry her and have kids with her? No? Well then, you failed. And I'm guessing you're in Costa Rica then. Oh yeah, that's another thing I read. I don't know if it's true or not. I've got no way of checking, but apparently Zelensky, you know, the Ukrainian Jew comedian slash fake president or whatever, he's got 1.2 billion in Costa Rica and some huge mansion in Florida. I mean, how good was he at like making jokes and shit? I mean, does Owen Benjamin know about this guy? You know, that as a Jewish comedian that danced around with high heels and banged his dick on a piano, he's got 1.2 billion in Costa Rica. Somebody should tell Big Bear, you know, I don't think he's the #1 comedian anymore if this guy is that good, you know. Yeah. Anyway, the cheese is Asiago. I like Asiago. It's one of those cheeses I could just pretty much eat as much as I want of it. And, you know, there's some people, there's another, there's a guy on YouTube, an Italian ex-maresciallo, which is marshal of the military police, of Italian military police, Pietro Bisanti, who does like some pretty good videos, and he doesn't mince his words, what he thinks about the government and the officials and so on. And, you know, he's also like pretty fanatical about no dairy and stuff like that. And these people that we had over, they were also like, yeah, you know, the guy's like in his 70s, and he's like, look, you know, you're in your 50s. When you get to 70, you got to watch like a little bit what you eat and stuff a bit more. You know, like I don't eat sugar, I don't eat sweets. Today was an exception because, you know, we're in good company. But, you know, I could tell he was like, he had the same attitude I've got, which is like, yeah, maybe if I don't eat this and I don't drink that and maybe I'll live an extra 5 years. But like, at what cost? You know, I'm not afraid of death. I'm Catholic. So, Okay. Annie, thanks for that. Okay, my problem is that, obviously I'm in Europe and I need to use some kind of trading platform or whatever to buy shares in this thing. So if you can help me figure that out, yeah, that'd be good. Okay, well, no questions on guns or women or the war. Well, we had a few on the war. I'm wondering whether Ukrainian prostitutes are going to charge a lot less now because, Ukraine was a breadbasket of prostitution in Europe, apparently. But apparently, another one of the things that was really going on was a lot of human trafficking from Ukraine. So I wonder whether Russia's going to put a stop to that or whether it'll get worse. I don't know. But I'm wondering whether this will escalate into like full-blown World War III, hot World War III. I mean, it's been World War III for a while now, but it's been 5G warfare. I think there is a possibility that Europe once again becomes a huge mess. And there are, funny enough, I go back to those Catholic prophecies which I've read. Seems to be all lining up. So I don't know. But I blame America. Just so you know. And Israel. But really America. Well, I don't know, I've been going almost an hour. You guys are a bit quiet today. I know there's 19 of you there, so come on, shoot some questions. Doesn't have to be on topic. Or just let me know what's going on in your life. Like I said, I'm just having some cheese and beer. I'm just chilling out with you boys. Wow. And he says that if you drive on the rural highways of Poland, there are prostitutes standing in the middle of nowhere, all over them, mostly Ukrainian and Romanian. Wow, that's rough, man. That is rough. That's bad. All we're waiting for now is the man of sin and the conversion of the Jews. Indeed. We know that Bergoglio is probably the prophet of the Antichrist, so isn't that a conversion of Russia also? Wasn't that Mary's Fatima? I mean, the third secret of Fatima or something. I don't know. As you guys know, I'm not up very much on that whole apocalyptic guessing game because it's pointless. It literally tells you in the Bible, not even Jesus knows the hour of his return. So, where's the answers with logos? Been a while since I've heard of them. No, she's on Gab or no, I've seen her recently. I've talked to her recently, so she's around. Maybe she's just not on the stream, but she does have a couple of kids and stuff. So. Well, how about I ask you guys a question then? A favorite war? Okay, like if you had to be teleported into any of the wars that happened in history, which one would you rather be in and why? Now you can't pick where exactly you'd be in, so you could be in a really terrible situation in it or a relatively good one. But which war would you rather be a part of and why? Favorite gun for that war would be what? Let me know. George the Unbaptizer, friend to vipers and demon. Oh, you mean Bergi, the Oleus. Yeah. Something or other says the American Civil War. I don't know the second part. Why the American Civil War? And would have you been for the South or for the North? No. I think the American Civil War is pretty brutal. But yeah, there's a certain appeal to it. Of course, I would have been for the South. Boer War on the British side. Aged in the Sun. That's a really weird one. I mean, I get, I get wanting to shoot Boers. Afrikaners. Yeah, the South. Okay, good. Troy, and I would want a crew-operated mortar. No, it has to be historically accurate. Troy would also be a really good one, though. The problem is if I was in Troy, I'd want to be on the side of the Trojans, because I am a Trojan. But they kind of lose, so, There's a storm M19 on a track. Oh, I wouldn't have wanted to be in Desert Storm. That wasn't a war. That was just a mass killing. And he says, hard question, maybe Battle of Troy. Yeah. I don't know. I think there's elements of the Second World War that have a certain appeal. I mean, it was, of course, if you're unlucky in the Second World War, that's it, you're done. But Jordan says Siege of Malta. Ooh, I wouldn't pick Siege of Malta, dude. If you've read 1565, The Great Siege, man, that was brutal. The Siege of Malta was rough. That was harsh. Yeah, I don't think I'd pick that one. Yeah, American Civil War, Second World War. They're both interesting. Woolly Ram, mostly to see if the Greek heroes were as mighty as the Odyssey portrays them. I think the Iliad is accurate. I believe it's accurate. And the book that I read by Dan Simmons called Ilium, a brilliant book, made me think that even the supernatural aspects of the Iliad have something to them. I believe that true historical events of the Battle of Troy may very well have had some supernatural stuff going on in there. And he says World War II was super interesting, but I wouldn't want to participate. Yeah, I know what you mean. It was really interesting, but I mean, it depends where you are, right? If you're in some dingy submarine that gets bombed, that's just, what a horrible way to go. On the other hand, if you're, I don't know, some resistance fighter with a decent sniper rifle and a field of Nazis to take your pick from, I don't know. What would I pick? I'm torn. I think there's a decent possibility that I would pick some really ancient thing like the Battle of Troy, or possibly the fights with the Gauls. The Roman side with the Gauls, on the side of the Romans, of course. Or also the Yeah, maybe the Roman wars with Carthage. Carthage delenda est. They were really evil fuckers. And I think that was possibly one of the more just wars that happened. War of the Roses would be interesting. I don't know enough about it. Probably was, but the 100-Year War against France also. Well, Jordan, I know you have your, shall we say, nationalistic pride. And I hope you do better against the French than the English have historically. Basically, I blame the English for Macron. If they'd won all their fights, there wouldn't be any Frenchmen, and then you wouldn't have Macron. Then you wouldn't have that problem. Wally Ram says, Israel's war of independence in the command and control pit. I would love to be a fly on that wall. No, I can't say I would want to be in any war that Israel was in. Yeah. It was a really quite interesting little series. I can't remember what it was called. I think it's called The Outpost. I'm not sure. It's set in Palestine before it became sort of Israel and the British, a British regiment or whatever that was there. Quite degenerate little series, but it was sort of interesting. And I recently watched a film called The Courier about apparently some spying that was going on during the Cuban Missile Crisis, or which got the Russians to back down on the Cuban Missile Crisis. And the thing is, they made it out that like these two guys essentially possibly averted nuclear war. It's possible, but I just don't think that nuclear war was ever really that close to happening. But I may be very wrong, and of course we may be having nuclear war soon enough. So I don't know, we'll see. Oh. Okay, we've done the favorite war, favorite gun, and then favorite woman. Either I suppose you could like pick one of the famous actresses, although I don't, or just describe one. Oh, I just remember the guys that came to visit. Like my wife was terribly, this guy's he's well off. He was driving a Maserati and whatever. And when my wife saw it, she was like, "Oh my god!" And I fed them that crap food that I made. It was just horrible, tasteless shit. But the guy called me up the next day and he goes, "Man, your wife really is hot. You got a little jewel there." I was like, "Well, hope it made up for the shitty food that she was so embarrassed about." So, yeah. And something or other says, "I really want a smelly piece of cheese so bad now." It's not smelly at all. Asiago has got a very refined, subtle smell, but a very good taste. Wooly Ram says, speaking of the big N, what odds do you give for a Western nuclear false flag? Well, they tried it already, didn't they? Apparently the Ukrainian attacked the nuclear power station and were repelled by the Russians. So I would say there's a maybe 5-10% chance that they would do something like that with a tank nuke. So is NATO going bye-bye? It's hard to know. Somebody was asking me this. Actually, the people that came over, we discussed it briefly in passing. And they were saying, what do you really think is this and that? And I was like, look, you'll never know. You can't know what the truth is. Because, first of all, every war since the 1900, and before, most of them before as well, but certainly from 1900 on, every single war that took place had occult reasons behind them that you don't know, or that you find out much later, and who knows if you find out the whole thing. So there's directly occult reasons that the war is happening. Secondly, there's indirect occult reasons. They're not directly related to the war, but have other occult, not known situations that influence the war, or that vice versa are influenced by the war and change things. Then you've got propaganda on both sides or multiple sides of whoever's in the war. And then, despite the best intentions or not lack of intentions, you've got the human factor, which invariably screws everything up. Now, mix all of that, and what you're left with is the delusion that you have an idea of what is really going on. Well, reality is you don't. The whole point of we see through a glass darkly. Well, think about a glass that's not just dark, but that's been crapped on, and that's under about 3 meters of muddy water, and it's got a crack in it. That's pretty much where you're at. So, my personal, if I had to really bet my life on it, I would think that Russia's powerful enough to tell NATO to go fuck themselves, and the whole of Europe, certainly the manpower in Europe that would actually be the soldiers, is pretty much all like, yep, we're just gonna go fuck ourselves. However, America is pushing very, very hard, and all the leaders of Europe are completely sold out little puppets. So I think it's eminently possible that all the puppets will declare war on Russia. But that doesn't necessarily mean that actual soldiers and the men that are supposed to fight this war in Russia will actually actively do it. I think we're on the verge of something that's maybe never happened before, where the leaders actively want the war, but the actual people that are supposed to be fighting might just sit down and say, fuck you, we're not doing it. And if that's the case, then possibly America would have to get involved directly. But if America gets involved directly, I think Russia would potentially then be able to, or be willing to, use nukes. So that's what I think. Most likely scenario, I think it'll be a bit like it is now. They'll take over Ukraine. Maybe they'll have to kick a bit the shit out of Poland or whatever. But at this moment in time, I might revise that opinion, but I don't think it's particularly very likely that we're going to have a widespread total war in Europe. At least not right now. Maybe a month from now, maybe 3 weeks from now, maybe 6 months from now. But not imminently. That's what I think. Could be wrong, but that's where I'm at. Willie Ram says the powers that be have forgotten they have proliferated high-definition cameras and ubiquitous uplinks. Manufacturing a narrative is harder, much harder. Yeah, but I mean, they've been pretty effective in completely wiping out Russia Today, which, it's actually one of the channels I like. What I put on Gab was that we've got, what we have here is the difference between 5G warfare and 4.5G warfare. 5G warfare is NATO, the US, and whatever, and it's all informational, social, and economic. So, Russians can't participate in the world cat painting competition or whatever, and we're going to close down all their bank accounts, and yeah, if you're a Russian, you're bad, you've got to go back to Russia because we're not going to let you study here. And also, we're cutting you off SWIFT. Russia's 4.5G warfare is like, we've given you very clear reasons why we were going to do this. We told you we were going to do this. Now we're doing it. And our propaganda is, by the way, the 5G propaganda is like all Russia bad, evil, rapists, whatever. The Russia propaganda is, we're just going to show you, here's the video, this is what happened, that's the truth. So Russian propaganda is, they've got the moral high ground because their reasons for doing what they're doing are eminently clear to anyone who cares to investigate it at all or look at it. Their propaganda is, we're just going to tell the facts as they are, and that's it. And it's very hard to fight that. If your propaganda is the actual truth or very close to the factual truth, it's very difficult to counter that. So I think Russia's got the upper hand right now. Age in the Sun says, what about Germany? Most Germans I talk to don't like the US, but the country is caving to them unbelievably. Yeah, but you see, their government is caving to the US, absolutely. Just like Italy is completely caving to the US, absolutely. And most people are weak, so most Germans maybe will just go along with what their government does. But in Italy, they passed a law that everyone over 50 has to get the shot, and it's like, 1.5 million of them just said, fuck you, we don't care. And we're not going to pay the fines. We're not going to do it. Italy's got about 60 million people, so I don't know what the total population of over 50s is, but it's pretty, I would guess it's pretty close to, most of them. So the resistance will happen in, Gen X are the guys who will generally resist the most. And, but a lot of them are brainwashed too. But the thing about Gen X is that we never had the numbers. We're not, they executed us before we were born for the most part. So it's difficult to say how it will go, but just because politically a country is kowtowing to America doesn't mean that its population is in agreement. I mean, you've seen that, right? You Americans all voted for Biden, didn't you? Didn't you? Well, he's the president. Something or other says, for now, I applaud Russia and respect China. But if this is in fact the start of the long shift towards Eastern power, I don't know what will replace global homo. Hard social credit systems would mean war. I wouldn't have a problem living under, say, Russian rule. I would have a problem living under Chinese rule. But, China's sort of far away. You've got Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Pakistan, India, Kazakhstan, all in the way before you get to Europe or anywhere near Europe. Then you also have Russia and Iran, Iraq. So, although, like my dad said many years ago, the Chinese don't need to create war, they just need to give their guys passports and they'll take over because there's like a couple of billion of them. But I'm not worried about China suddenly taking over Europe. China is busy trying to take over Africa, and they're succeeding. But that'll take time, it'll take another 30, 40, 50 years before they've consolidated that. And that's enough time that I think my kids will have had a chance to have a decent life if, Europe's still around. That I don't know. Thanks for the comments. I'm at work and I need to go. Cheers, guys. You're welcome, Aged in the Sun. Have a good one. Wooly Ram says, how do normies not get narrative whiplash from plague, doom, coup, to war, Russia, Putin man bad? I don't know, man. The a couple of things that have happened in the last few years. Trump did a really brilliant job of exposing the fact that all media are completely corrupt liars that you shouldn't rely on for anything at all. If the news tells you that the sky is blue and it's raining, you can assume it's nighttime and it's a clear sky. That's just as a given rule. I think Trump demonstrated that. And the so-called pandemic has demonstrated the average human being is a complete moron. Pardon me, that's what I used to think, that the average human being is a complete moron. And that's true. But it's not just the average human being, it's almost all of them are complete morons. It's really true. Most people are idiots. And by most people, you really mean most, like almost all of them. It's quite a shock, but there we are. Yeah, something or other says you need to be sentient to feel that mental whiplash. And they're just objects to be used at the media's whim. Yeah, to a certain extent, that's true. They're sort of protozoic life forms that you prod and they move in that direction. You prod them here and they go in that direction. They don't really have a functioning brain. They're just a mass of little emotive feelings that are easily controlled. Well, boys and girls, I've been going a lot longer than I thought. It's over an hour. Thank you all for your company, your interesting questions. We didn't really cover guns and women, but that's all right. A sheep without a shepherd. Yeah, that's a very good description. And, there's wolves. Wolves working in concert, herding them into a kill zone, really. What interests me is I'd really like to know the percentages of deadly vax shots that people have taken compared to the war, and where's that going to lead? What's the demographics going to be like in about 5 years? I think that's an interesting question. Apparently the Ukraine has only got about 30% so-called vaccinated people, which means about 70% of them are not. My wife on Facebook, there's some guy that, they're friends on Facebook, and I don't think they've ever actually met, but like you got Facebook friends, and this guy was escaping from eastern Ukraine to western Ukraine. Now, eastern Ukraine is where Donbass and Lugansk are, so obviously, there's stuff going on there, there's fights going on there. But he's got 2 kids, and some of his videos that he posted on Facebook, you could see like bombs nearly rattled his car and shit. So, there's stuff happening, but anyone sitting here that thinks that they know what's really going on is deluded. We don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I think it would be almost impossible for you to figure out what's going on if you were there. Never mind if you're here. So, yeah, I wouldn't waste too much time on it. Frankly, it's stuff that's happening 3,000 k's away from me. I don't need to know. I don't care to know. It doesn't really affect me one way or the other. But here we are all talking about that stuff instead of thinking about some things that might be just a bit more important. According to Barnhart, 5 to 10% of batches were hot. Lethality and damage spreads across a weighted bell curve. Huh. Well, if it's only 5 to 10%, that's probably... That's probably better than I thought. Still bad, but 5 to 10% being bad ones are it's a much lower number than I thought it would be. Anyway, boys and girls, I am tired. I'm going to go to sleep. Thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And next time we will have to cover the guns better. Good night.